For business in general, how important do you view writing?
I think it's like incredibly important, and it's one of those things where I think you're going to see a bigger gap between like people who do and don't write slash people who can and can't write because of AI. Because
Yeah.
what AI does, and this is not just a writing thing. This is a broader thought that I have in general, is that it allows you to get the output without actually having like the knowledge synthesis yourself. So, for example, if like let's say I have to write up a buy memo on a startup that we're looking at. I could probably like there's a like I use this app. There's an app called Granola that automatically like records, transcribes, and like summarizes, synthesizes meetings. And it's very useful because if you're trying to actively take notes the whole time somebody's talking, like it's very tough to be fully locked in on what they're saying to ask like deep questions and then also jot down all the answers. So it's very useful for that. But if you don't actually like go back through and do your own write up after and you just trust the summarization, like you're missing an entire like review period where you're like poking back through the stuff, opportunities to like ask follow up questions, to like there's just you're just absorbing less of that knowledge if you just do the basic questions, then use the AI summary and go from there. And that applies to so much stuff. Like you can use AI to get like an output that you need that's good enough and send it, but you yourself don't develop that skill or knowledge or whatever. It's the same thing with like you don't really, for most stuff you can get around not knowing a second language. Like instead of learning Spanish, there's so many good like translation tools and this and that that can do stuff in real time. But then you yourself just like the the miss on that is you just don't ever learn Spanish. There's a value prop in being able to speak to people in their native language. If same thing with coding, like I can now build very average tools with Python without having to know how to code, but there's limits to that because I still don't know how to code. If the code gets big enough that you can't just feed it through Claude or Chat GPT, I don't know how to troubleshoot it because I don't really know what I'm reading. It's just like I'm very good at getting the prompts right. But yeah, the same thing with writing, where I think that you're going to see a lot of people get over reliant on it because it's easier and it saves time. And I think that like the AI upside, especially when it comes to writing, is being able to like one have like a kind of a brainstorming partner to like riff
Yeah.
back and forth with, and you can expedite a lot of the tedious parts of research. And like the sources aren't always right, but you can get 80 or 90% of the way there with like Chat GPT's research or Perplexity. I mean, there's so many tools out there, but you still actually need to go through and do the work of like, even if you make a first draft with AI, that's fine. You still need to heavily edit it where you're actually having like the knowledge synthesis of like finding the logic holes and what you're looking at, because the AI summary should be like the very early first draft of anything you do, but then you need to go in and do the work after. And I think that we're going to see a lot of people that just become increasingly reliant on outsourcing too much of the writing slash thinking process to a robot, and then they themselves don't like they're missing out on a lot of like knowledge upside.